Welcome to this episode of Vertical MRO with myself, the host, Val Medved, and my co-host, Mr. Jon Gray of Hangar Z. Today, we've got a thrilling conversation lined up with Mr. Marc Foreman, a helicopter technician, A&P and IA from Oklahoma City Police Department Aviation Unit. Get ready for an exhilarating mix of topics as we delve into tornadoes, aviation advancements, and public safety. As a helicopter mechanic, Marc provides us with an insider's look to the world of aviation, covering everything from the intricacies of fixed-wing versus helicopter maintenance to the challenges and rewards of working on various aircraft. He also discusses the impact of technology on aviation and the highlights of a critical role mechanics play in ensuring safety and efficiency on and off the field. That's not all. We also explore the personal side of Marc's journey, including the invaluable mentorship he received from his stepfather in the industry. Discover the benefits of having a supportive mentor who passes down valuable knowledge and skills. And of course, we can't forget about the public safety aspects of aviation. Marc shares some pretty good insights into the challenges faced by law enforcement aviation units and the crucial role of aircraft maintenance in firefighting operations. Get ready for some fascinating story over Marc's career as he reflects on the passion and dedication that mechanics bring to their work. So whether you're sipping on a coffee, fueling up, or just on your way to work with a Monster energy drink, like Marc, sit back, relax, and join us for this engaging conversation you won't want to miss. This is Vertical MRO. Special thanks going out to our sponsors, Bell and Precision Aviation Group.
Welcome to the Vertical MRO podcast, brought to you by Vertical Helicasts.
All right, everyone, you're ready to contact. You're cleared to the Bravo.
The Vertical MRO podcast explores the fascinating world of helicopter maintenance, repair, and overhaul with your host, Val Medved.
Atlanta altimeter 3029, approved as requested.
The podcast features helicopter technicians, mechanics, engineers, and MRO experts who share invaluable industry insight, knowledge, and stories that will inspire current and aspiring industry maintainers.
I know you said and I'm going to ask you this a two-front question here. I know you spoke about your love and delight there. 1946 Piper, you said?
Yes.
I know that's going to be a aircraft of endearment, I'm sure of it. But outside of that, what's a good platform that you kind of like approaching on? What's one of the favorite ones you like kind of turning a wrench on?
Rotorcraft, the A-Star, it opens up like no other aircraft. You can have it in 30 minutes. You can have it completely uncowed, completely ready to start your inspection. It's amazing in that aspect. I really like it. The King Air is my all-time favorite fixed wing. Absolutely love that plane. That's a badass plane too. That thing has had airframe miles on that bad boy is legendary. Yeah. Other than flowing the fuel nozzles, that's I really like it. Yeah. Just don't like the fuel. But no, it's a great plane. It was meant to be worked on. It was the great design, and it's just classic. I know it's right up there in John's favorite category of flying. I'm sure the A-Stars are got to be right up there.
Yeah, in law enforcement, it's kind of become the gold standard for a lot of agencies. For single engine operations, you just have a lot of capability there and for different mission profiles. And you guys are seeing that. I know where you're at with Oklahoma City with your different mission profiles. Can you kind of go through what you guys are doing, what different missions you're supporting?
So within the last 2 years, we started baby bucket work. That has progressed to short haul. So the guys had classes in that last year. We're hauling live bodies now. I go out on their training and take the fuel truck and refuel them. And when they don't have enough ground personnel to perform the tasks and stuff and not get a break, I volunteer as a victim and they come save me wherever I go hide and drop in with the 100-foot line and pick you up and take you back to their little meeting pad. But they're getting pretty proficient at it. They're getting great. So our new ship will have a hoist on it. So we're kind of moving into that aspect of search and rescue. This is the first time, last several years anyway, that the police department and the fire department have shared toys. Mm. So the chief on both sides they really like each other. One is, Chief Kelly, which is the fire chief, stepped before city council and basically promoted the third aircraft, knowing full well that he's going to be giving up assets that they potentially need with the $6 million of money that it takes to outfit one. So
we talked about the number of aircraft available for us, and I think it's the same for you. If you had, the saying is, if you got one, you got none. If you got two, you have one. And if you've got three, you've got two. We always wanted one in reserve. So having 3 aircraft on hand was essential. Is that kind of what you guys have found as well?
That was my whole spiel when I brought this up 3 years ago, was 1 mechanic, 8 pilots. If you get me a 3rd aircraft, I can always guarantee you that 1's available. 1's in heavy maintenance, 2 should be, ready. But if something happens, you still have 1.
Yep.
And then 1 mechanic could take care of all 3 because, you're slowly rolling through them. That kind of backfired on me. And so now we've added four pilots and they want to fly more. And so we're adding the other mechanic though. So it's going to be good. We're going to lose next couple of months. We're losing 2 pilots. 1's retiring tomorrow. And then the next one, I believe, in about a month. That'll put us behind the 8 ball as far as getting these 4, up and running. It's going to probably be 2-3 year process.
I was going to say, you could probably do a job plug right now saying, anybody that needs to apply at Oklahoma Police.
Yeah. Well, and that's the unique thing about our department and our flight times is, or the way they choose a pilot is, when a position comes open, you're not required to have a certificate or any flight time or know anything about an aircraft other than, maybe making a commercial flight somewhere. They bring everybody in, teach them in-house in the A-Star. We send them out to do their solo work and their autos. But other than that, everything's learned in-house. We have 3 instructors. 1's a double I. So they do everything here. So it's been really good.
That's good.
So you're paying for their training when it comes to replacing
Correct.
skid shoes and cleaning carbon off the tail from hovering and all that stuff.
Oh, yeah. So we have A set, B set. B set came on a Wednesday. Thursday, they told me they're going to do some run on landings and some other things. So I changed the skid shoes, both sides. That they didn't get around to it until like Tuesday, and I was in a meeting. I get back from the meeting, and there's 2 instructor pilots and 2 students on that set. They did about 18 or 19 run on landings. And they went through the skid shoes.
Oh, no.
And basically the spring tabs were knife edged. And I was like, I just put them on. We now have a rule is no more than 5 run on landings before you have to, inspect the shoes. Luckily it didn't get into the skids, but yeah, I destroyed everything. It was brand new. So they made it, I think, 12 or 13 hours.
Wow. You guys have added aircraft, you've added hours of operation, and by virtue of that, flight time as well.
Correct.
When it comes to adding mission sets, there's a lot of agencies that are looking to add these different mission sets to their profiles. From a maintenance standpoint, what recommendations would you make to the DOM who works an agency and they're going to bring on a rescue program and a firefighting program?
Yeah.
How can they kind of get in front of some of the things that are going to come their way that they may not know about?
We made a lot of calls. I spoke to a lot of agencies out in California, Texas DPS. It was harder to find people to do Bambi bucket work. So I had to reach out to some state agencies and stuff like that. Just learn the equipment, find out everything you can about whatever you're wanting to bolt to your aircraft, the Bambi buckets, the hooks. There are so many variables out there, especially for your older models. You can actually bolt directly to the fuselage. With the new crash resistant fuel cells, you've got, you have to use the little sling or harness type system. And so just learning the equipment, doing the legwork beforehand has helped me a lot. With the A-Stars, really doesn't add much as far as maintenance or, risking, the increase in flight hours or numbers on cycles or stuff like that, because the numbers are so large. With the MD500 and, figuring out RINs and torque events and all that stuff, those are going to climb significant if you're doing belly hook stuff. So just know what you're getting into with the equipment that you have.
Be patient with it all, I'm sure. Cover all your, what do they say? Cross your I's and dot your T's.
Oh, yeah. And, our guys started out, they call it a torpedo. It's 6 foot and 10 inches round, full of concrete. And putting that on a 50-foot line, it was kind of humbling for a few of them because, I mean, it is all over the place. And they're trying to drop it in a 6-foot circle and then get down to a 3-foot circle. It was kind of funny to watch. So, because these are seasoned pilots that, can do things with the aircraft that are impressive. They're having a hard time getting this stick in a 6-foot circle. So
I've seen some of that training here locally here with a couple of operators here, and they kind of had their 3 oil bins stacked on the bottom, and it was like a 50-pound bucket filled with cement. They were kind of just doing the touches and dropping off, and then, like you said, going from a larger radius of like 15 feet down to 6, down to 3. I'm just like, that's insane. That is absolutely insane. Engaging the wind, your headwind, and there's a day there's a couple of good southwestern gusts. It's like, holy smokes, your metal is tested for sure.
Yeah, a lot of the guys that I've talked to that have gone through that training say they feel like a brand new pilot over again when you're figuring out how to long line.
Sure.
Unfamiliarity with how the aircraft's going to respond to the weight in the bottom of that line is got to be a pretty big challenge. So,
so after I watch these guys touch the buckets and go, the guy's like, "Hey, we should put a harness on you. Let's go skim the forest." I'm like, no. This is a lot of person right here. Like, God forbid I come back with pine rash on me, right? Like, that's not going to happen. I think it was just his way of kind of always getting back at me because I kind of outdrank him a couple of times. So that's about that.
That's funny.
Mark, you were awarded something. We just want to talk to you a little bit about your technical support or technical specialist of the year by Airbus in 2021. Congratulations on that.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, it was actually from APSA.
APSA. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Thanks for clarifying that. Just tell us about that, because that's a pretty big ordeal, my friend. Well done.
Thank you to our sponsor, Precision Aviation Group. Mission-critical operators and fleet managers rely on Precision Aviation Group as a worldwide leading rotor and fixed-wing MRO provider. PAG provides tip-to-tail solutions in 4 MRO segments: avionics, components, engines, and manufacturing DER services. A single point of contact gives you access to over 150 million in inventory globally, 24/7. Just call 800-537-2778. Precision Aviation Group. Others sell parts. We sell support.
That's a kind of a touchy subject, but with my old partner. But now one of our pilots put me in for it because I was keeping things afloat around here and keeping them in the air. He was keeping some track of some stats that I didn't even know were stats, kind of like NBA basketball stuff and LeBron. He put me in for it, and I was honored. Got to go to New Orleans to receive that award. It's an honor that the guys thought enough of me to put me in for it. But at the same time, I had a partner that was here, and helping. But he went through double shoulder surgery, one right after the other, during that time. So the last 2 years of his career, he wasn't here a lot. So I basically spent 3 years running the place by myself. He was doing some paperwork, some stuff in the back, but he was kind of checked out and ready to retire.
He saw the light at the end of the tunnel. I gotcha.
Yeah, he spent 25 years with the city, probably another 15 before he got on with the city. His time, he had spent his time here. He's ready to go. So
yeah.
How do you, on the backside of your career, how do you kind of maintain your passion and drive that you've got for the industry and your positivity? Because that, I think, is something that is easy to succumb to. You talk about some of the fatigue that sets in from a career in the industry.
With mine, my number one drive is I don't want to kill anybody.
That's good.
That's what drives me. It really is.
That's a big one.
If I wanted to make more money, it's out there. I could have chased the dollar for, forever, but you got to travel. If you want to make really good money in aviation, as far as maintenance, you got to be willing to move. You got to be willing to go where the big jobs are. I just built a house on 45 acres that my family's been on since right after the land run. I'm not moving. So
yeah,
I'm stuck as far as that goes, but it's hard some days, especially when you are the only one here. You've had the lion's share of the work for the past 5 years. You wake up Sunday mornings and you're just like going, man, that gearbox is waiting on me or something that you really don't want to go work on that day. But I may show up late or something like that, but I get my 10 hours and, head home and hopefully I don't get called. But if they do call, I'm understanding. My wife, not so much. She understands it's part of the job. She's always been supportive of everything. So she's been great.
That's the other key thing that I think, like I said, I've bless my wife for putting up with my ass for 23 years in this, or 23 years married, but 26 actually years in the industry. I've gotten those AOG calls in the middle of the night or those, that 4:30 call here. Well, Val, I need this part because so-and-so crapped out. I'm just like, dude, everything's closed. Or you get the call on Sunday mornings because something happened, right? And she understands when there's an AOG call. She understands completely. So kudos to the partners that are out there that are able to kind of support our career and nasty habits. Is that what it is?
Well, and that's a kind of a bonus from me growing up in the industry is I met so many people early on.
Yeah.
Owners of other businesses and stuff like that. So if I need a favor or I don't have something, I can usually make a call and find it within 15 minutes or so. It's like one of the things, the pilot's retiring. I took one of his old flight helmets and sanded it down, taped it off, and I called the paint shop and said, hey, you guys painting white anytime this week? Yeah. What do you got? I just hit this with whatever's left over, and something that would have cost me a couple $100 of materials and time, you can go and, hey, it's free, and they'll kick it out to me. Or if you need a can of sealer that you don't have, it's one of those things that just you go over there and borrow and then replace when you get yours. So it works. Talk to people, meet as many people as you can that are around other airports, because you never know when you might need something.
It's I think, and this has kind of been a key point in a couple of other podcasts here along the way, it really is the network that you create. And if you can kind of get into I've spoke about this more than a few times, and John, I know you've heard it, is that everybody thinks our industry is so big, but it really isn't. It really isn't. It's, the good people that we know each other can do exactly what you just did. You know what I mean? If you need something within a call, that's like a 10, 15 minute phone call away. It's usually done. And that's what I appreciate is the family, like the brotherhood and the sisterhood of our industry, kind of counting on something that when you needed it, they'll deliver it. That's the absolute key takeaway when you're kind of networking. So anybody listening, network.
Yeah.
Network.
I even had MD call once when we were operating the 500s, and it was Haverfield Aviation. There was a bleed airline on the engine. Theirs had ruptured, and they were looking for one, and they were in eastern Oklahoma. Les calls me from MD and goes, do you have one of these? I went and looked. I said, actually, I have two. Oh, man, could you part with one? I said, man, this isn't general aviation. I said, I can't just give away city assets.
Yeah.
So we ran up the chain of command, and, having MD's backing saying, hey, you're going to have one there in 2 days. But yeah, those guys drove an hour and a half, picked that up, but it saved them 2 days downtime.
Yeah.
So
especially when, and that's like in my side of the world, there are helicopters not making anybody any money if it's on the ground. And
exactly.
When you're dealing on the rescue services and the law enforcement, it's not doing what it's supposed to be doing, is serve, protect, and kind of look above and help people out. It's not going to do that on the ground. So it's that network is key, absolute key.
Yeah, the community that you talk about, it is a small community. When you look at the aviation community by itself is fairly small, but when you look at helicopters within the aviation community, it's even smaller. And then you look at public safety is even a smaller subset of that.
Yep.
So you find, like, going to APSCON, you know a lot of the folks there, and it's like a reunion every time you go and see folks you haven't seen in a year or a couple of years. Speaking in line with what you're talking about, Val, we had some sort of measuring instrument our mechanics needed, and theirs was down for whatever the reason was. And they asked us to fly out to the San Bernardino County Sheriff's facility. Their mechanics had agreed to let us borrow their device. The weather was coming in. We ended up not being able to make the flight. And San Bernardino calls back and, hey, we see the weather's going bad. One of our mechanics actually lives not far from your hangar. They'll drive it over to you and give it to you, and you don't have to fly out here.
Yeah.
I'm like, man, that doesn't happen by accident. That takes effort in networking and building these relationships, to where when something like that happens, you have an agency or some peers that are willing to do that for you.
Yep.
That's huge.
Yep. And it's the other part about that. And like I said, I'm in the sales side of the world where, they're like, I'll get a call like, hey, Val, do you have this? And if I don't have it, I'm like, okay, here, let me introduce you to a couple of extra people. It's that little extra touch that at the end of the day, like, oh shit, okay, I called Val and he kind of put me over to these guys. We got it done, kind of thing. I brag about that. And it's just a matter of kind of, if I can expand my network to people that are absolutely in need of it and keeping their helicopter up, that's all that matters really at that point.
Absolutely. On the part side, where are you seeing issues as far as supply goes right now with what you're doing?
The only thing we've ran into recently were the basically the gaskets that go between the epi and the main body of the main gearbox. Those were on back order for a while, and I had one that was leaking, so I didn't know they were on back order. So I separated, got everything ready, ordered it. They're not available, and so we had to wait about 3 weeks. And they put us on AOG, and I called my customer service guy down at Airbus, and he kind of, I think, moved us up to the front. They try and take care for law enforcement customers, but we got it, back in working order, but that's about it right now. I know that they put out a critical list once a quarter or whatever it might be. It just basically might be 1 to 8 or 9 parts that basically say, hey, if you're going to need these, you need to plan on getting them. So,
yeah, I know we've started doing that there with my job there. Our customer account managers there do a really good job of kind of emailing everybody that's either done business with us or wanted to do business with us, where we've now given them a timeline of what inventory is expected in, and then they can kind of plan accordingly based upon that. So if you got a drive shaft that's coming due in a few weeks, okay, you got this one L3 or L1 through L3 coming in, they can kind of plan accordingly. So we've information, I think, is kind of the other part, the key factor that when you're kind of disassembling something, you're able to kind of now contact your account manager, whether it's with Airbus, Bell, or any MD or any of the operators, any one of your vendors. You can give them that heads up of a scheduled maintenance, then they can kind of plan accordingly. They're with you.
Yep. A couple questions. Sorry, that are piquing my interest. One is for the folks who mainly they're in the industry now, they're A&Ps, and they're considering making a move to public safety as a mechanic. Can you talk about some of the benefits that you've experienced as being a mechanic in the public safety industry versus maybe the general aviation market?
Thank you to our sponsor, Bell. Bell proudly supports the Vertical MRO podcast and their vision to share valuable insights into helicopter maintenance, repair, and overhaul.
Bell is dedicated to keeping our customers in the sky and on their missions with industry-leading global customer solutions.
Probably the biggest one for me is the benefits. I have a defined, benefits pension, 25 years, 50%. You can invest on the side if you like. 7 years ago, I had back-to-back Achilles surgeries from soccer.
Whoa.
$50 is outpatient, is all it costs me for each surgery. The benefit packages, your time off. I've never missed anything. My kids were in school. Never missed a sporting event, a rodeo, anything, that I didn't want to attend. It's a family first environment. We keep the ships, ready and available. We do our job, and they basically, take care of your family. The aircraft will be here tomorrow, so as long as they've got something to fly, it's been great. You don't have at least here, I've never had somebody in my command say you can't leave until that aircraft's flying, ever. I've never had to justify spending money on a part. If I needed $22,000, for a servo, I just say, yeah, we need it or you can't fly. And they trust me to do my job. I don't have anybody looking over my back. That's my lieutenants for the most part are non-flyers. So they come into the unit and all they know about aviation is they book a flight and fly somewhere commercially. They have to trust me. And if they don't, that won't work. But that's been the benefits for me. Right now, being the only mechanic, I set my own hours. As long as I get my 80 hours in, my lieutenant doesn't care what days I work. I can work 6 on or 8 on, 6 off, like the pilots, just whatever.
A lot of flexibility there.
Yeah, the downside is that you are on call. We're mission driven. And if they don't have a plane or an aircraft or something available, then I kind of hold it, myself accountable for that. I've had lieutenants that say, we don't have anything available and it's Friday and I don't come back till Tuesday. And I can't let them be down for 3 days. That's just not how I'm wired. I'll work a few extra hours on Friday, and then I'll come back and fish Saturday morning, and we'll get them up and going. But before we release an aircraft, we have our pilots, day pilots, go out and do all the post maintenance flights and checks before we release it. It's rewarding, because you are part of that mission.
Mm-hmm.
The pilots will come back and talk, hey, we got this felony guy for whatever it might be, drugs, murder, whatever.
He's wanted.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you can't help but feel part of that.
Absolutely.
And so you want them to succeed.
Yeah.
I always, I'll ask them, when they get back from a flight, you catch any bad guys? Most of the time, no, or a slow day. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, that I love that part about it, that true sense of mission, because in understanding the mission by itself isn't possible without the entirety of the crew, and you guys are a part of that crew. We'd run up the stairwell. So at our hangar, you'd actually go downstairs to the business office, and that's where we'd maintain our readiness. If we got a pursuit or something kicked off and we're on the ground, we'd run up the stairs and run out to the aircraft and leave. But anytime the mechanics were on the floor and heard us scrambling for a call, they would run out, do the fire watch for us, get us airborne. Just, it kind of illustrates the fact that they're a part of the mission, and they're invested as much in the outcome of the mission as we are. And it got to the point where we'd return from a call. If we had a new tactical flight officer that was working that call, the mechanic would give him a little bit of constructive criticism when he gets back. He'd say, I heard you working this pursuit. And he'd tell him maybe a way to sound better. I'm like, man, they're around it so much, and so they're so invested in it that they're able to actually give feedback to these young kids. And I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, I actually teach when we have new temps and stuff like that. I actually teach them a little bit of ground safety, how to act around running aircraft, but how to use the equipment. I learned how to use it, and when we had the 8500s, and now we've got the nicer FLIRs, 380s, and if you don't have that, kind of, teamwork, then it just doesn't work. It makes your day, go by slow. You just don't want to be here. And that's not what I want to do. So, if they get back and they've been flying nonstop, I'll go out and fuel the aircraft for them, move it in for them, which is not what I'm required to do. They usually take care of the aircraft themselves, but you go out and help them. Like you said, you open the doors, especially if it's coming back and it's starting to rain, you get the aircraft in and work as a team. So
nice. Well, we're going to start winding down here. Like Mark, well, thank you very much for all this. But in closing of all this here, anybody that's becoming an A&P mechanic, what advice would you pass along to them? What's your sole piece of advice? You're like, hey, this is what you're going to need to get done, or this is what you should be thinking about getting done.
Find somebody who's invested in the career or in their career. Any words of wisdom that old person wants to, impart on you, soak it up. If they're the old cynical mechanic who's just, aircraft suck and, this.
Not in our industry. What?
Yeah. Avoid that toxicity. I'm that way sometimes. Try and find somebody who after 30 years still enjoys their job and learn from them. I told Jon, I think last time, if there's any special tools when somebody retires, don't buy their wrenches, don't buy their other stuff. Go for those one-offs and ask them what they are. If they say, I use this all the time and this is what it's for, buy that tool. The one-offs that aren't available anywhere else. But again, if you're doing it for money, you need to have a passion for what you do in anything. I tell that to my kids. I don't care what you do, just be passionate about it. You ultimately have to take ownership in anything you do in aviation. I'm signing off the aircraft saying that it's safe for the pilot to fly.
Yep.
That pilot is now getting in. He now takes ownership of that aircraft. Everything that they do in that aircraft is on their shoulders.
Yeah.
So can be a very humbling experience and a very humbling, career. just the minor things, you forget that one cotter pin. Those are all things that could lead to, catastrophe. I hate to say it, but
That's true.
It is.
But it's the attention to detail. Yeah.
Yes.
100%.
I want to go one step beyond the A&P level. I think there's probably a lot of folks who are A&Ps and are considering going for their IA, but for whatever reason, maybe reluctant or aren't sure that they want to do it. What would your advice be to those folks that are considering that, and what kind of pushed you over the edge to decide to actually pursue that?
I ended up getting mine after I got here. I worked for a repair station and didn't need it. Everything was signed off through the repair station. So I had my license for, 16 years before I went to get my IA. It took me a day and a half to go take the test, pass it. Then on the flip side of that, the guys or people who want to get it, 3 years to the date after they got their A&P, and they struggle. It might be a 2-week, 3-week time, or they have to take the test multiple times. If you're not ready, it's okay not to have it in your pocket. Be patient, learn. There's no reason to go out and get your IA just to sign off things that you shouldn't be signing off. But if you are confident and that's something you want to do, it's find a mentor, talk to them. I've worked with some pretty great guys and women in my career that I've learned from all of them, different things. And I'm still learning. If you stop learning in aviation, something's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I started off with steam gauges. Now I'm a full glass cockpits. That's the hard part for me is I can take my computer, I can interface with the engine, I can interface with this and that. And a lot of times I don't do it often enough. So I'm like, man, I forgot how to do that. So I got to look it back up. Be constantly learning in your field. That IA will come soon enough. To the people who want to do that, if you're still interested and like structures and other thing like that, go get your DAR. That's the next progression if you're interested. So.
The Vertical MRO podcast is powered by Vertical Magazine, the rotorcraft industry's #1 trusted multimedia resource. Visit Vertical Mag Media on YouTube to gain access to exclusive videos featuring operators in the field and more unique content from the pages of Vertical. Subscribe today to stay informed and inspired. I know mentorship is a big wheelhouse for you, Val. What's your 2 cents on that?
Generally, it's my side of the industry is to always be a good listener. Have exactly like we said, have a mentor that you kind of showing you a little bit of the ropes. It's, ultimately it's, you start off, it's a young person's game, and you're going to get fed from a fire hose, for lack of a better term, information here. Just take all of that as much as you possibly can and repeat it as much as you can. That's why you can kind of go over, if you make mistakes along the way, learn from your mistakes, and then kind of just go back at it. Just constantly stay at it. Don't give up on it. And that's, from my side of the world, luckily enough, I had a couple of mentors kind of show me the ropes of what to look for, how to deal with, and kind of go on to the next step. But ultimately, my secret weapon, I got asked, what makes you a salesman for as long as you've been as a salesman? I go, I'm a good listener. I'm a good listener. If I can kind of help relate or help kind of break it down to a point where it's understandable on both sides what I'm dealing with, and if it's what do they call it, the Socratian theory. If I can put myself in their shoes and they're in my shoes, we understand each other, then that anything can be accomplished.
You talked about some of the technological advances that you've seen in your career, from steam gauges to the full glass cockpit, and then you go beyond that to the mission equipment now it's integrated into the aircraft. So all the responsibilities that are added there. Had an interesting conversation with some folks a few weeks back, talking about the idea of kind of reverse mentorship. So the idea is, for some of the folks that have been in the industry that don't have the experience with the avionics that are new, or some of this mission equipment, they're actually reaching back to the younger generation and asking for their input, and they're kind of learning from each other, which is a really interesting concept, because the technology is advancing so quickly in some of this stuff.
Mark, you said this earlier, there kind of if you're not really kind of learning or kind of going back and reinvestigating what you learned and almost forgot, you're going to be left behind. It's especially like, we're moving up in our age at the same time. Now we're learning that these younger folks are coming in and they're knocking stuff out quicker than we probably could have done back when we were starting. And if we kind of don't tap into that, youthful exuberance and knowledge part about it again, I think we're now considered dinosaurs at that point.
Yep.
Or fossil fuels.
In 2019, we got our current cameras. My son came with me to work one day and he was bored, took longer than I thought. And I finally just said, here, sit right here, figure this out. Well, the controller for the FLIR looks just like his Xbox controller or whatever it is. I didn't give him any instruction. I just said, stay out of the menu codes. And within, 20 minutes, he had it figured out. They're wired different.
Yeah.
It's, at least he is for me. If it doesn't have mechanical things in it and then they move, I struggle. I can learn it and I get there. But it's one of those things that if it's electrical, I was brought up with diagrams. Let's go get the aircraft diagram and let's trace it out. These kids don't think that way. They're a whole different brain, but absolutely, my son will have conversations. He does coding and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
And it's literally, I'll listen to him for 30, 40 minutes and I'll go and talk to my wife. And is this the conversations we had when we were first married and you asked me what I did at work? And she goes, because she finally stopped asking what I did at work and just how was work. And so I clued into that she had no clue what I was talking about. That's kind of like me when my son and, enjoy spending time with him, but I'm clueless when it comes to that stuff.
You figure what they're learning now in high school. I'm even going back a couple of years here, but because both my boys are out of high school there and one's moving on to post-secondary education, but the stuff that they're learning in high school, the coding that they're learning in high school, that was a college education back in the early 90s. So it's just like they can write code quicker than you and I could kind of, figure out how to still type on a keyboard. I welcome that. And I especially welcome that our industry. And I know where our industry is kind of trajecting out to and kind of having that future look into what, especially with the multi-fan VTOLs and stuff like that. It's really cool technology coming up. So I encourage anybody who's listening to kind of just keep it going. Keep it going.
Yep.
And with the coding, last thing I'll touch on this. You brought up diagrams. When you look at coding and what that is for software, that's like the modern day diagram that you're describing. It's really interesting for the kids that understand what they're looking at. I have no idea when I look at a code bank what I'm looking at, but they do. And it makes sense in the way that it makes sense, for a lot of us that can look at a diagram and make sense of that. Really wild. And it's neat to see, like you were talking about, Val, my kids in elementary school were learning to code and making basic programs with that code. I'm like, man, that's awesome. So
you throw a blueprint in front of them, they don't know what the hell you're doing. Well, meanwhile, okay, we can put this here, and here. All of a sudden, but meanwhile, they'll go onto a computer screen, 3D that thing up, and all of a sudden now they're like, it's their, like kind of like Mark said, they're just wired differently, man. They get to see things, via the thumbsticks and the joysticks that they were kind of growing up playing with, right? So it's I agree 100% with that.
I just saw an article when it comes to the Xbox controllers. The U.S. Navy, they had a controller that, if I remember the article right, controlled their periscope, and it was an astronomical cost to replace. It was like $250,000 or something. And then they found that they can use an Xbox controller that costs less than $100 to do the same thing. So they replaced it. And man, how cool is that?
Yeah, teching it down.
But I think the kids right now that if you're going to A&P school, I would suggest that you hit the electrical side heavy.
Okay.
That seems to be where it's going. I'm not sure, but the electrical motors, everything, I'm not geared for that.
Everything's going to be kind of generally computer based pretty soon here. Yeah, I'm with you. It's good advice, solid advice. Especially, I know I got a couple of my son's friends that are kind of going into up here in Canada. They're called AMEs, and they're kind of just jumping into that now with the wiring side of the world. And it's like, you have the older mechanics like, well, that's just not hard work. I'm like, oh, listen, they're seeing your pops there. It's a different part of your brain that you and I are probably fogged over on. They can kind of flip it over real quick on a switch. Yeah. I don't know. Like you've touched on a lot here with us to kind of Mark. I appreciate you coming on again. John, anything that you have to kind of ask before we wrap up or?
No, Mark, I just appreciate your passion for the industry. You've done a lot for not just your own agency, but for the public safety aviation industry by itself and in aviation beyond that. So again, I appreciate you and your friendship and everything you're doing things that are far bigger than yourself. And I love that about you. So thank you for joining us and imparting our listeners with your knowledge.
I appreciate it. And I wish you guys the best with this new endeavor. So,
Mark, it's been my pleasure to finally get to know you a little bit here. I know John has spoken pretty highly about you, and I look forward to one day on putting that glass of a brown sip there to the lips there, buddy. That's first one's on me.
Sounds great.
First one's on me, man.
All right. I appreciate it.
Stand by for a message after a word from our sponsors.
Thank you to our sponsor, Precision Aviation Group. Mission-critical operators and fleet managers rely on Precision Aviation Group as a worldwide leading rotor and fixed-wing MRO provider. PAG provides tip-to-tail solutions in 4 MRO segments: avionics, components, engines, and manufacturing DER services. A single point of contact gives you access to over 150 million in inventory globally, 24/7. Just call 800-537-2778. Precision Aviation Group. Others sell parts. We sell support. Thank you to our sponsor, Bell. Bell proudly supports the Vertical MRO podcast and their vision to share valuable insights into helicopter maintenance, repair, and overhaul. Bell is dedicated to keeping our customers in the sky and on their missions with industry-leading global customer solutions.
The Vertical MRO podcast is powered by Vertical Magazine, the rotorcraft industry's #1 trusted multimedia resource. Visit Vertical Mag Media on YouTube to gain access to exclusive videos featuring operators in the field and more unique content from the pages of Vertical. Subscribe today to stay informed and inspired.
Thanks for joining us on this captivating journey with Mr. Marc Foreman and really getting into the pivotal role of aircraft maintenance and public safety aviation. From the challenges faced by law enforcement aviation units to the critical role of mechanics in firefighting operations, Marc has shared some pretty invaluable insights and fascinating stories from his illustrious career. As we conclude our conversation with Marc, we extend our sincere gratitude for his illuminating perspectives and dedication to ensuring that the safety and effectiveness of an aircraft in challenging environments. His passion for aviation maintenance shines through, highlighting the unwavering commitment of mechanics in safeguarding lives and property from above. To our listeners, we hope you found some inspiration and appreciation for the vital work performed by aviation maintenance professionals like Marc. Their expertise and dedication are essential pillars of safety and efficiency in the skies. Stay tuned for more insightful discussions and stories from leaders in the aviation and beyond. If at least, we hope to have you smiling at the end of the show. Thanks for letting me and our team, the Vertical Helicast team, into your world. Until next time, keep those rotors turning and may you fly in clear skies. Val, over and out.
This has been the Vertical MRO Podcast. Join us next time for another edition of the Vertical MRO Podcast, brought to you by Vertical Helicasts.